Okay, so you've got a high quality cut of beef from a high quality cow. If you were in the USA, I think you'd probably whip up a steak with this. In Brazil, maybe you'd grill the thing. Usually, in China, I think what people often reach for is a hot pot, thinly slicing the beef and then blanching it until it's just about done. But a stir fry is also an option. So then, to that end, enter Xingyi beef pot from the Guizhou province. No, personally, I've never really seen anything like this before. Basically, what you've got is a nice beef stir fry, and then what you do is serve it alongside a hot pot with a base of a nice beef stock. You then eat the sizzling beef alongside some blanched mint, together with some thinly sliced hot pot beef if you're in the mood, and finish it all up with some of the soup. They're ubiquitous to the halal beef shops that dot that city, and it's just a really unique way of eating really high quality beef. Of course, with that said, I know that you might just be wondering now, why exactly is there a culture of really high quality beef in what's probably the most imposingly rugged highland region in China? Well, the answer there is less geographic and more cultural. And it's a beef culture that you can't really separate from the culture of the Yunnanese Hui. Now, if you're familiar with the Hui, you probably know them as a kind of complicated Chinese Muslim ethno-religious group that serve up some delectable Lanzhou beef noodle soup, clustered up in the northwest of the country. How they got to the opposite side of China was first during the Mongol Empire to work as their administrators, but over the years, more ended up following. As time went on, they carved out their place in Yunnan as traders, gem miners, and most famously, caravanners. But unlike the various Thai-speaking Dai groups or the Han Chinese, they didn't end up clumping in one area or another. They were a little bit everywhere, crisscrossing the complex multi-ethnic fabric of the Yunhui hinterlands, including the town of Xingyi, classically a center of the Buyi people. But where the Hui go, noodles, lamb, and beef seem to go with them, and the Southwest loves its beef. Some of the most famous dishes around here are beef dishes, and it feels like everyone argues over which town has the best Nyoganba jerky. And whether it's at a market or at a hot pot restaurant, you're usually not too far away from a Hui butcher. Of course, on that note though, we don't exactly have a local Hui butcher, and I'm guessing neither do you. So this did take some piecing together. Because the cut is important for Xingyi beef pot. The most commonly used one is something called dunzi. It's a local name specific to that exact pocket, and it's not even really searchable even in Chinese. So after a frustrating amount of digging, we found that it actually corresponds pretty neatly with what's internationally known as picana or rump cap. It's a cut that's nice and fatty, reasonably tender, but holds up to longer cooking, and is prized in Brazilian barbecue for precisely that reason. If you can't find it, after some discussion, our Patreon Discord settled on a sub of either tri-tip or chuck steak. But either way, just slice up 600 grams worth of what you have into about 3mm slices. Then we'll just marinate that with a super simple marinade of a half teaspoon salt, quarter teaspoon Sichuan peppercorn powder, half teaspoon dark soy sauce for color, and enough oil that it can neatly slip through your fingers, or about 2 tablespoons, and then set that aside. Now, for this dish, while there's variants around other parts of Guizhou that make use of a pretty heavily seasoned base for the pot, in Xingyi it seems to be a lot less heavy-handed. Restaurants appear to use a sort of chili seasoning powder in order to get that base flavor, the exact contents of which unfortunately proved a bit elusive. So, fair warning that the following is our recreation based off of what we know about Guizhou food. The flavors seem to match, but no guarantees that it's exactly the same as the restaurants. So then, we base this off of a mix of 12 grams of a red fragrant chili and 3 grams of a spicy chili, both snipped into sections and toasted until fragrant and slightly brittle, or about 8 minutes over a medium-low flame. Then, we also toasted a half teaspoon Sichuan peppercorn together with another half teaspoon of fennel seed, toasted till the pepper releases a touch of its oil, or about 3 minutes. Then just add all those to a coffee or spice grinder and blitz it into a fine powder. Reserve, then add in a tablespoon half of toasted or roasted peanuts, and then also blitz that into a powder. Then just mix those together with a teaspoon of 5 spice powder, another teaspoon of chicken bouillon powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon MSG, and a quarter teaspoon of sugar, and then set that aside. Now, before we get to the stir fry itself, I suppose that we should also probably teach you how to make some of that Chinese beef stock, which is pretty dead simple. All it takes is one large bone cracked open so that the marrow can easily come out to swim, together with a bit of beef. In China, often the bones will have a touch of meat still on them. You could also use scraps, but today we tossed in about 200 grams worth of brisket. Then just bring that roughly 3 liters of water up to a boil and give it a good skim, as obsessively as you feel led to. Then just toss in a few inch section of a Welsh onion, or alternatively a sprig of scallion, an inch of crushed ginger, a half teaspoon Sichuan peppercorn, and a half teaspoon of fennel seed. Then just turn that to the lowest flame that your stove will go, and simmer for as long as it's logistically convenient, at least 6 hours or up to 12. It'll likely yield you a good bit more than you actually need for the pot, which is why today we'll actually use up a previous batch if you don't mind. So then, with that sorted, now let's whip up that final stir fry. And as always, first, lang yao. Get that wok piping hot, shut off the heat, and add in the oil. Here, about a half a cup. That's not a typo, don't go cheap. This was a 50-50 mix of tallow and rapeseed oil, which is nice if you happen to have tallow on hand. Then we'll go in with 4 fingerling potatoes, about 400 grams, cut into rough batons. Use whatever potato is convenient, but something on the waxier side like a fingerling will work better for the pot. Just fry those over a medium flame for about 8 minutes, or until the exterior is just starting to blister a bit, and then take them out to drain. Now just get that oil up to about 160 centigrade, or when bubbles can form around a pair of chopsticks, and then dump your beef in. Fry that over a high flame until the beef is changed color. At this point, the frying oil will still look a bit brackish, just continue to fry. Once you can start to see a sheen of clear oil forming once again, after about 3 minutes or so, toss in 5 cloves of smashed garlic, an inch of smashed ginger, and 8 whole dried chilies. Continue to fry until the oil's mostly clear once again, about 1 or maybe 2 minutes more, then add in your seasoning powder. Make sure it's good and mixed, then add back in the potatoes and mix again. Then go in with 60 grams worth of chopped Chinese celery and heat off. And then now this is ready for our pot. But speaking of pot, quick word on equipment before we start eating this. You see, in Guizhou, they use these really cool inside-outside divider pots that are perfect for this. For the obsessive, I actually did happen to find this pot on Amazon, but this is not a recommendation. I have no idea if Guizhou is a legitimate business or not. So one of those standard divider hot pots also work perfectly well. Our suggestion would be just to kind of center the flame on the soup side, if at all possible. Either way, just ladle in your soup, scoop in the stir fry, and be sure to prepare a nice plate of mint, together with any additional hot pot sides you're feeling. And then you can serve.
So, how to eat this thing? Well, first, you do want some white rice because this is very 下饭, super good with rice. And then just eat some of the beef, eat some of the rice together with it. And then also you can just grab some mint, dip it in the hot pot, quickly blanch it, and then eat it together as well. It tastes really good. And of course, you can also do some hot pot fixings like vegetables or beef or even fish balls. Up to you. So right, check out the recipe in the description box. A big thank you for everyone that's supporting us on Patreon, and of course, subscribe for more Chinese cooking videos.